Hello, this is Rod Keller. I'm here with Eileen Barker, Professor Emeritus of Sociology at the London School of Economics and Political Science. Uh, Eileen is a sociologist with special reference to the study of religion, and you're well known for studying new religious movements, or what many people at this conference, the International Society for Cultic
International Cultic Studies Association.
International Cultic Studies Association would call cults. And I know that you have a particular relationship with the Church of Scientology. And I just wanted to ask you how that came about and what is the nature of that relationship?
I wouldn't say I had a particular relationship with Scientologists. They're one of the ones I've looked at, but not particularly. In fact, definitely not particularly. My relationship, such as it is that between sociologist and a group that she's studying. But a lot of the groups I've studied by trying to do what's called participant observation, which means going and living with them and doing, up to a point, the sort of things they do day to day, washing dishes or what have you, though I don't convert anybody and I don't go as far as having sex with anyone. But the Scientologists, I haven't, they're not on the list of my sort of movements I've studied most closely, because ages ago, when I was interested in studying them, I asked Heber Jentzsch, who was then the vice president or something, whether I could be audited in order to see what that was like. And he said no, because he knew I would only be doing it as a sociologist and not as a believer.
That's Heber's writing, that you have to want to want something about you changed in order for the process to be valid.
Well, I couldn't say that I did, and
right.
so
I've had
we
the same
agreed.
issue.
So that's why I always say I'm not an expert, insofar as a sociologist can never be an expert in Scientology. But that doesn't mean to say I haven't got to know them over the years. I have. I know some of them in Britain. I've been to St Hill, their manor down in East Grinstead, lots of times. I visited them all over the world, in America, Los Angeles, in Israel, in Denmark, I can't remember, say a dozen different countries, their headquarters, but Germany, Berlin. Anyway, I visited a lot, and I've got to know, I should think about a dozen fairly well as individuals, Europeans and Americans, and I've met the one in Israel several times. So I know them personally. I've talked to quite a number who I don't know very well at odd places, if they're on Sea Org or on staff. The organisation that I founded and run in Britain called Inform, we often receive inquiries about Scientology, and sometimes we've tried to facilitate meetings or sorting out between families and Scientology. So, for example, they've agreed, after we've approached them and pointed out their ethics thing, to give money back that a husband obtained under false pretenses from a wife, five-figure figure. They gave that back. Another time we've met with somebody, a very anxious mother whose daughter had left college to join and go on staff, and we had a meeting. It was agreed that she would come off staff for 2 years so that she could finish her course and then do what she wanted. Actually, she decided to go back, but she did by then have 2 years course under her belt. I used to take my students down to visit Scientology. I took them to about 20 different groups, and Scientology was one of them. And they would show us around. tell us what they were up to. Students were always very nervous about them, particularly nervous about Scientology because they'd see some of the stuff that was on the media. That's really it.
Have you ever, you said about living with different groups, have you ever lived with Scientologists?
No.
And you've attended a number of their conferences, correct?
I've been to their big jamborees in St. Hill a couple of times. I can't remember what they're called. David Miscavige has been there, and Tom Cruise.
Did you meet either of them?
No, not personally. No, I've never met either of them. I'd like to meet Tom Cruise. He's more charismatic there than he is on film, I think. But anyway, no. Heber Jensch is probably the highest at that time. I mean, then he fell from grace, but he's probably the highest up that I've ever communicated with. He talked at an Inform conference on one occasion when we had a specific panel with members from the different movements talking, and he talked. And I think, I'm not sure, we've had somebody from Free Zone talk, the last big conference we had. I don't think I've ever been to a conference organised by Scientology. I mean, it's possible, but I don't think so. They turn up at a lot of conferences.
I think that's where my confusion is, that I see somebody like an Eric Rue or something at a conference, and I assume it's a Scientology conference.
Yeah, no, I've met Eric at various conferences. He was at an Antwerp conference on Scientology that I went to. And he was turned up at one in Kyrgyzstan. And he's been to ICSA conferences, this conference. I think that's when I first met him in Trieste, when it was held there. That was the first time I met him. And then Janet Whalen turns up at a lot of conferences. And then the British ones, I know they're sort of PR people, and they come to our Inform conferences.
Obviously not. I've seen Scientologists at similar events, and they've been rather disruptive. I assume that's not the case at your.
Heber Jensch was. He was very. He was showing films comparing German, not films, but the posters comparing the Nazis and the Jews with what Germany was now doing to Scientology, and that, not surprisingly, ruffled quite a few feathers. That was a long time ago. But no, they've not been disruptive at any of the Inform conferences. They usually behave themselves. We very rarely have disruption. We had one with the school chaplain complaining about an extreme evangelical Christian, and we had an occasion where two different Muslim groups attacked each other.
So we have Falun Gong outside protest.
Yeah. I must go out and see them. I haven't seen them yet. I mean, I saw them in the session. They came into the session I'd gone to listen to. But Scientology, you ask about the relationship. It's not tense now, but it has been. When I set up Inform, on a couple of occasions they've threatened us. One was because we had books that were anti-Scientology on our shelves, and they wanted us to remove them, and we refused. And we're quite happy to have their books on the shelves as well. But we'll have books from all different perspectives. Another time they thought that we were responsible for a report that stopped them being able to advertise. Actually, it wasn't true. We weren't responsible for that report. And I think there was another occasion where we got a solicitor's letter. I can't remember what that was, but that was all a long time ago. Now we're sort of fairly, we can negotiate. if we get a complaint and with the person's permission, we'll get in touch with the Scientologist and say, can we sort this out?
Well,
Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't.
I know you're anxious to get downstairs, as am I, to the sessions, and I just wanted to thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me.
You're welcome.